The city was no longer silent under the glass dome. The first flickers of rebellion had grown into a roaring blaze that swept through the lower districts like wildfire. Lira stood atop the cracked steps of the ancient fountain, her heart pounding as hundreds of faces turned toward her, their eyes alight with a mixture of hope and desperation. Around her, shards of the glass sphere caught the faint light, scattering fractured rainbows across the worn stone. "We have waited too long," Lira's voice rang out, steady despite the storm within. "For years, we have lived in the shadow of their glass prison, trapped beneath a dome that reflects our pain and silences our voices. But no more. The cracks we see are not just in the glass, they are in their control. The time has come to shatter this cage, to reclaim our city, our freedom." A roar of approval erupted from the crowd, fists punching the air, voices raised in defiant cheers. Lira could feel the surge of power radiating from her, the connection to the sphere's magic pulsing beneath her skin. Yet beneath the adrenaline, a pang of doubt gnawed at her resolve. Could she lead these people? Was she strong enough to bear the weight of their hopes? From the high towers of the ruling elite, Lady Cerise watched with cold eyes. The silver-haired councilwoman stood poised in her chamber, its glass walls offering a panoramic view of the city now aflame with rebellion. Her fingers tapped rhythmically against the polished surface of her desk as she issued commands to the guards below. "Contain the uprising," she ordered, voice sharp and unyielding. "Protect the sphere at all costs. If the city falls, so does our magic and our legacy." The elite's forces mobilized swiftly, armored guards marching through marble halls toward the rebel-held districts. But the people, fueled by years of oppression and the promise of liberation, fought with a ferocity that surprised even the hardened soldiers. In the midst of the chaos, Varric emerged as a fierce and charismatic leader of the rebellion. His scarred face was etched with determination as he rallied the fighters, coordinating strikes against key strongholds. Beside him, Milo moved like a shadow, his quick hands dismantling traps and opening pathways through the labyrinthian cityscape. Lira found herself torn between the exhilaration of the fight and the crushing responsibility it carried. Each victory came with lost friends fallen, neighborhoods ravaged, the fragile glass dome above groaning with new cracks that threatened to shatter at any moment. In quieter moments between skirmishes, Lira sought counsel from those she trusted. "We cannot just break the glass," she confided to Milo one evening as they sheltered in a ruined workshop. "If the sphere collapses, the city will be lost beneath the storm. We need another way, one that brings freedom without destruction." Milo nodded, wiping grime from his brow. "Then we must find that way before it's too late. The people need you, Lirino, just as a symbol, but as a leader who can see beyond the fight." Her journey was no longer just about survival or discovery, it was about shaping a future, where the city's people could live without fear, where power would no longer be a cage, but a tool for justice. As the rebellion surged, the glass dome's fractures spread like veins of light, illuminating the city's turmoil beneath. Battles raged in narrow alleys and grand plazas alike, the clash of steel and sorcery echoing against the shimmering walls. And at the heart of it all stood Lira, a beacon of defiance, caught between the promise of freedom and the shadow of control. The choices she made now would decide not only her fate, but the destiny of Glassbound itself. The city's future hung on a knife's edge, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, the first stars caught in the broken glass seemed to pulse with silent anticipation. The rebellion had begun, but its end was still unwritten. The night deepened, bringing with it a tense stillness after the day's chaos. Lira, walked through the rebel camp, the faces of the people etched with exhaustion and determination. Fires flickered in metal barrels, casting dancing shadows on the glass shards littering the ground. "Tomorrow," Varric said, joining her quietly, "we take the council's stronghold. If we break their hold there, the city will be ours." She nodded, feeling the weight of his words. The path ahead was perilous. More than just a battle of weapons, it was a war for hearts, for the soul of the city trapped beneath the glass. Lyra's fingers brushed against the faint crack in her palm, a constant reminder of the power she wielded and the danger it held. Could she lead the rebellion to victory without becoming the tyrant they fought against? The question lingered like the storm's distant thunder, a promise of the trials yet to come. The glass rebellion had ignited, and with it, the fragile hope of a new dawn for Glassbound. But as the city trembled on the edge of upheaval, one truth remained clear. Freedom would come at a price, and Lira must be ready to pay it. The fractured light of the setting sun filtered through the cracked glass dome, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across the worn stones of the lower city. Lira stood silently before the great pane, her gaze tracing the jagged fissures that spiderwebbed outward like veins of shattered hope. The endless storm churned beneath them, a tempestuous roiling sea of dark clouds and lightning that threatened to swallow the floating city whole. Yet here, suspended in fragile glass, the city clung stubbornly to its precarious existence. Her reflection fractured and multiplied in the broken glass, each shard showing a different facet of herself: the orphan, the rebel, the legacy bearer, each struggling for dominance within her heart. The weight of her choices pressed heavily, a silent storm as fierce as the one below. "You carry the weight of glass and storm," a voice whispered from the shadows behind her. Lira spun around, eyes sharp, heart pounding. From the dim alley emerged a figure draped in a dark cloak, their face hidden beneath a hood that swallowed all but the faint glimmer of eyes like shards of polished crystal. The stranger moved with a fluid grace, steps soundless on the cobblestones. "Who are you?" Lira demanded, though a flicker of recognition stirred deep within her. "A friend, or perhaps the reflection of your own doubts," the stranger replied softly. "I am called the Whisperer, one who listens to the glass's silent song and the storm's fury." Lira narrowed her eyes, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. "What do you want?" "To offer you truth, though its edges may cut as deeply as the cracks in your city. You seek to control or to free, but the sphere demands more than choice. It asks sacrifice." Her mind reeled. So much had been hidden beneath layers of glass and lies: the cursed inheritance, the burden of magic, the fragile peace between classes. The Whisperer's words echoed the silent fears she harbored, that power was a double-edged sword, and freedom might come at a cost too great to bear. "Show me," Lira breathed, stepping closer as the stranger beckoned silently toward a narrow passage leading beneath the city. The air grew colder as they descended into forgotten catacombs, where shards of ancient glass littered the floor, glittering like fallen stars. Torchlight flickered against the walls, casting long shadows that danced with whispered memories. The sphere was born from sacrifice, the Whisperer intoned, crafted to contain the storm's wrath and to bind the city's fate. But its magic is not static. It breathes, it listens, and it judges. Lyra's fingers brushed a jagged shard, the cold biting through her skin. "And my power? Am I the key to its future or its destruction?" "Both," came the reply. "You are the fracture and the mender, the shadow and the light. Your choices will ripple through glass and storm alike. But beware, the sphere's magic carries chains forged in ancient fear. To break free, You must first understand what binds you." A heavy silence settled, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder above. Later, atop the city's highest roof, Lira stood beside Joran, her closest ally in the rebellion. The wind tugged at her cloak, and the storm's distant roar vibrated through the glass beneath their feet. "You met the Whisperer," Joran said quietly, reading the turmoil in her eyes. "Yes," Lira replied, voice low. "They told me things I feared to hear, that I'm both the prison and the key. That my power isn't just a gift, but a curse." Joran nodded, his gaze steady but filled with concern. "We all carry burdens, Lira, but you're not alone." She looked out over the city, its fractured glass shimmering like a fractured heart. The rebellion stirred below, hope and fear entwined like the light and shadow on the dome. "I don't know if I can bear this," she admitted, "but I must try." The storm gathered strength, the glass trembling beneath their feet as if echoing her resolve. Somewhere deep within this fear, the magic pulsed, waiting, watching, and bound by the fragile will of one girl caught between freedom and control. And as the night deepened, so did the shadows of doubt. Lyra's journey was far from over, and the choices she made tonight would shatter more than glass. They would reshape the fate of all who dwelled within the city suspended above the storm. The glass held its breath, and so did she. The air beneath the city was thick with the scent of damp stone and ancient magic, a heady mixture that set Lyra's senses alight as she stepped carefully into the cavernous chamber. Blue luminescence pulsed faintly from veins of crystalline magic that snaked along the walls, casting fractured shadows that danced like ghosts in the flickering light. Her companion, Eron, moved silently beside her, his amber eyes scanning every surface with the practiced vigilance of a scout who had seen too many lies hidden in plain sight. "This place, it's older than anyone said," Lira whispered, her voice barely carrying over the echo of their footsteps. The chamber felt alive, humming with an energy that was both inviting and foreboding. The glyphs carved into the floor, they're not just decoration. They speak of power and sacrifice. Eron nodded grimly. The rebellion's stories never mentioned this depth. "We've only scratched the surface of what the sphere really is." Lira knelt to examine the glass beneath her hands. The surface was cracked in places, the fractures glowing faintly with a light that seemed to pulse in time with her own heartbeat. As her fingers traced the ancient symbols etched into the glass, a sudden chill swept through the chamber, and the air shimmered with a spectral glow. From the swirling mists emerged a figure, translucent and shifting, its form refracting the light like a prism shattered and reassembled countless times. The glassmaker's spirit, the ancient artisan who had forged the sphere, stood before them, its voice a haunting melody that resonated through the chamber. "You seek the truth of the sphere," the spirit intoned, "but know this, the city's safety has come at a terrible price. The endless storm below is no mere tempest of wind and rain. It is raw, unbridled magic, chained beneath this glass prison by the hands of your ancestors." Lyra's breath caught. The stories she had heard as a child, tales of the storm's fury and the city's fragile balance, suddenly took on a deeper, darker meaning. The glass was not just a barrier, it was a cage, holding at bay a power that could either save or destroy them all. "Why trap it?" Lira demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Control," the spirit replied. "The founders feared the storm's wild magic, its unpredictability. They bound it to the sphere, binding themselves to power and to chains of their own making." Visions assaulted Lyra's mind, flashes of the storm's raging fury, the glass sphere glowing with arcane energy, and the faces of those who had paid the ultimate price to create this fragile sanctuary. She staggered back, her heart pounding. Iran reached out, steadying her. "We have to tell the others. This changes everything." But Lyra's gaze remained fixed on the cracked glass at her feet, energy pulsing beneath her fingers. The power was intoxicating but dangerous. Could she wield it without succumbing to its destructive potential? Or was the only path to shatter the sphere and risk chaos? A low rumble shook the chamber, a reminder that the storm's wrath was never far below. Time was slipping away, and with it, the fragile peace that held their world together. "We need to move," Lira said, voice steely. "There's more to uncover, but for now, we must return. The city's fate depends on what we do next." As they hurried back through the labyrinthine tunnels, the weight of truth settled heavy on Lyra's shoulders. The splinters of knowledge she had gathered were sharp and unforgiving. Her journey was no longer just about survival or rebellion. It was about confronting the very foundation of their existence and deciding whether to preserve their fragile prison or break free into the unknown. And in the distance, the endless storm raged on, a reminder that some truths are storms themselves, waiting only for the right moment to break free. The weight of magic bore down on Lira like an unrelenting tide. Each day, her powers surged stronger, rippling beneath her skin with an urgency that was both exhilarating and terrifying. But with every crackling pulse of energy, her body grew wearier, her mind teetered on the edge of exhaustion. She could feel the glass sphere's magic coursing through her veins, a borrowed strength that demanded a price far greater than she had anticipated. On the crest of the city's highest spire, Lira stood with the endless storm looming beneath the glass dome. The wind whispered around her, carrying the distant roars of thunder and the faint, eerie glow of lightning. Her hands trembled as she coaxed threads of magic from the fractured glass, weaving them into delicate patterns of light. The glow intensified, illuminating the cracks spreading across the sphere's surface like veins of shattered crystal. But the effort left her gasping for breath. Sweat slicked her brow, and a dull ache throbbed behind her eyes. She clenched her fists, forcing the energy to recede at least for a moment. The city below remained unaware of how close their fragile protector was to breaking. "Lira," a voice called from behind, sharp and urgent. Imon emerged from the shadowed rooftop entrance, his expression etched with concern. "We need to talk. The rebellion grows restless. They want you to lead." She turned, meeting his steady gaze. "I'm not sure I can," she admitted, her voice raw. "Every time I push my magic, it takes more from me. I don't want to become something else." Imon stepped closer, his tones softer but firm. "You're already there, Symbol, whether you like it or not. They need you, Lira, but you need to be careful. Power without control is dangerous." Inside the dim chamber where the rebels gathered, tension simmered beneath the surface. Voices clashed like the thunder outside, plans and fears colliding. Lira felt the burden of expectation pressing on her chest, threatening to suffocate the fragile hope she carried. "We can't wait," Eamon urged during their heated discussion. "The council tightens its grip. Every day we delay, they strengthen their hold. Your magic is the spark we need." "But what if that spark burns too bright?" Lira countered, voice trembling. "What if I lose myself in it?" Their argument hung in the air, unresolved, as the flickering torchlight cast long shadows that danced like restless spirits. Seeking guidance, Lira turned to Seren, the enigmatic advisor whose knowledge of the sphere's ancient magic was unmatched. In a secluded chamber filled with floating shards of enchanted glass, Seren's calm presence was a balm to Lyra's frayed nerves. Magic is a living thing, Siren explained, her pale eyes reflecting the swirling light. It demands balance between giving and taking, creation and destruction. You must learn to temper it with your will, to wield it without surrendering your soul. Together, they embarked on a ritual of focuser, delicate dance of concentration and restraint. Lira closed her eyes, breathing deeply as the shimmering shards hummed softly around them. The glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, a fragile harmony she struggled to maintain. But the nights were the hardest. Alone in the quiet darkness, shadows of doubt crept into Lyra's mind. Visions of the sphere shattering into a million pieces, the city plunging into chaos, and herself transformed into a monster haunted her restless sleep. One night, she awoke with a gasp, clutching her chest as if to hold her racing heart in place. "I won't become like them," she whispered fiercely to the empty room, the ruling elite who wielded power without mercy, the tyrants who crushed dreams beneath their heels. "I will not be the monster." Yet the line between savior and destroyer blurred with every crack that spider-webbed across the glass above. As the rebellion's demands grew louder, Lira found herself at a crossroads. To lead meant embracing the very power she feared might consume her. To refuse meant betraying those who believed in her. The city's fate hung in the balance, fragile as the glass that enclosed it. And beneath it all, the storm raged, a relentless reminder that freedom came at a price. And that power, once unleashed, could never be fully controlled. The question lingered in the air as dawn crept over the horizon. Could Lira master the storm within before it shattered everything she held dear? Her answer would shape the destiny of Glassbound and the souls trapped within its fragile embrace. The morning light bent through the fractured glass, casting fractured rainbows over the city of Glassbound like shards of a shattered dream. Lira stood motionless atop the highest spire, her eyes fixed on the immense crack that had appeared overnight. It stretched like a jagged scar across the smooth surface of the glass dome, splitting the sky itself into two separate worlds. The endless storm below churned with renewed fury, its sound a distant, ominous growl that seemed to echo the dread tightening in her chest. Around her, the city whispered and stirred. The usual hum of daily life was tainted by an undercurrent of fear. Market stalls closed early, children clung to parents' hands a little tighter, and the distant bells of the council's alarms told an unrelenting warning. The sphere was breaking. Lyra's fingers trembled as she reached out, touching the fractured glass that framed the sky. Her magic hummed faintly beneath her skin, a pulse she had learned to listen to coax and command. But here, faced with the enormity of the crack, it felt fragile, insufficient. "Lira," Talon's voice cut through the haze of her thoughts. He arrived, breathless, his rugged face drawn tight with concern and determination. "The rebellion is gathering. People are scared, but they look to you." She turned to face him, the weight of his words heavy on her shoulders. "I don't know if I can fix this," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "The sphere, it's more than glass. It's alive with magic I barely understand." Talon nodded grimly. "Then we find a way to understand it." Together, the council chambers were a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Candlelight flickered against polished wood and stone, casting long shadows that danced with the voices of men and women in power. Councillor Marin stood at the center, his commanding presence demanding attention. "This crack," he said, his tone sharp and unyielding, "is not just a threat to our city, but to our way of life. Panic spreads faster than the storm beneath us. We must enforce order. No one outside the council is to intervene." A murmur of dissent rose among the gathered leaders. "With all due respect, Councillor," another voice challenged, Ignoring the magic that binds the sphere is folly. We need Lira's power, her connection to the glass, to save us. Merrin's eyes narrowed. That girl is a wild card. If she can't control her magic, she will shatter everything. Back beneath the city, in a hidden chamber bathed in pale blue light, Eris awaited. The figure's translucent silver cloak shimmered as they extended a glowing hand toward Lira, who had come seeking answers. The sphere's heart beats with trapped power, Eris whispered, voice like the rustle of wind through crystal. Your magic is but a spark. To mend the crack, you must embrace the legacy, fully take control of the glass's essence, or let it consume you. Lyra's breath hitched at the weight of the choice. To seize control meant risking her own humanity, becoming a force as unyielding and cold as the glass itself. To let the sphere break would doom the city and its people. The city trembled beneath the widening crack as Lira closed her eyes, reaching deep into the well of inherited magic. She called out to the glass, to the storm, to the legacy etched into her blood. The sphere responded with a shudder, a trembling that sent shards of light cascading through the streets below. For a moment, it seemed the crack might seal, the magic weaving a fragile lattice of strength and hope. But then, with a sound like the world itself cracking, the fracture widened once more, threatening to spill destruction across the floating city. No, Lira gasped, staggering back. It's not enough. Talon caught her arm, steadying her. Then we fight. Together, the city held its breath, balanced precariously between salvation and ruin. The choices made here, in the heart of the broken sphere, would shape the destiny of Glassbound forever. And as the storm below howled its fury, Lira knew the coming days would demand everything she had danned more. The crack continued to spread, a living wound against the sky. Lyra's resolve hardened as she prepared to face the impossible. The broken sphere was no longer just a prison for the city, it was now a crucible for her spirit. She would either rise as its savior or fall as its destroyer. The future was as fragile as the glass beneath her feet, and the storm was watching, waiting to see which path she would choose.